Old Master Studies plus live painting sessions. I've been on YouTube for a while now. You may have seen a couple of my videos. If this is your first time here, welcome. You're in for a treat. There's going to be a lot of things that I'm going to explain that I haven't really dealt with so much in the past. One thing is, yes, I will be painting, but I'm starting off with this lightsaber looking thing, which is just a pencil with a extender on it. So I am using a reference again. Like I said, I took some time off to do Old Master Studies and self-portraits. This is what I told everyone. This is the best thing to do, is to take time off, do Old Master Studies and self-portraits. Yes, that is what I did. But now, here's how you can apply it to your painting. So first off, with this is a 4B pencil. Again, it's on an extender, which kind of replicates a brush a little bit, as you can see. Kind of similar to a brush. So the thing is, what I have figured out, at least for myself recently, is that I need to spend a little more time with the light and shadow. So the linear specificity of things. And I know that you can't really see too much of the lines because it's not as, sharp as drawing with a brush. It's not as exciting as drawing with a brush, but certain measurements are going to be easier to see. Now, obviously, if you want to have the perfect proportions, obviously you can trace the picture, or you can spend all day doing these little measurements. That's fine. What I learned from my previous painting sessions from life, again, I went to Baltimore, which was about an hour and a half drive, about 5 weeks in a row now, to paint from life, and I always screwed this up. The distance from here to here, I always screwed it up. So basically, the big shapes I kind of took for granted for a little while. Yeah, I'm painting. I'm drawing right now, but I will be painting. Hopefully the image is showing up. I'm not sure, actually, if the image is working or not. But yes, I will be painting pretty soon. And I'll show you what marks, and I'm sure you already know these proportional marks to look for, because once I get them, I'm gonna go right into this brush already has paint on it, so I'm already prepared for when I get there. So let me show you what it is. So the hairline right here down to the chin is really important. Now the distance from the hairline to the eyebrows is another one. Now, it's hard to tell because the hair is covering the model's head. So I'm going to have to imagine that the hairline probably begins somewhere around there. But now I have a distance from the eyebrows down to the nose. And this has to have some kind of careful relationship to that of the nose down to the chin. Get these things right, and it'll be a lot easier for you to progress, as you'll see. For example, let's tackle that now. So here's the eye. This is almost a profile view. Pretty close to that. There's the eye. Corner of the eye socket. Now, what's important here is, where is the tear duct? These are the landmarks of the face. tear duct over here. Now what is this line in relation to a straight? It probably nearly lands right on the mouth, so this is right on the money right there. Pretty close. Now the nose is a little bit further to the left, giving us a place marker right there, and the bottom of the nose landing somewhere over here is fairly accurate. Now one of my major problems, and you may have the same problem or you may have a different one, is the distance from the mouth to the nose. I tend to always elongate it. Everything from the eyes down, I tend to always elongate. Not so much anymore. Well, as of like, I don't know, yesterday. I'm not making that mistake as much. But here, now I have this angle. The corner of the nose is going to land somewhere over there. There's our perspective line for that. The other eye is going to land somewhere over here, just off the edge of the nose. Okay, so that gives us this angle. So we got 1, 2, 3. Make sure these perspective lines match, and they're pretty good. Now we see that we have a fairly dominant cheekbone area. We're going to have all the space over here to do some careful rendering. There's a hand over here. I don't think I'm going to get into that hand. I will not have enough time to paint a hand. So this is another thing. I'm a lot slower now than I was before, and there's good reason for that. Okay, so now we have the placement for these features. Adjustments that I may need to make would perhaps be relative to the eyebrow. The eye might drop. Oh, so little. Probably less than a centimeter, or maybe, I don't know, maybe a centimeter. It's going to drop a little bit. Now these are little infinitesimal changes that I wouldn't normally do if I was drawing with a brush. I would just slap some color on there and start turning form. You've seen me do 15-minute drawings. You've seen me do 10-minute drawings or paintings. Now let's go in with the profile. This is a 4B. You could use something like a 6B pencil. Not a H or a B. A B or an H would be too difficult to make a mark on a gray tone. So this gives us the bridge of the nose right there, and there's the angle, and then we've got kind of a little rounded nose, and we're going to go to town rendering this little bulb of the nose. It's going to be quite a delight to deliver the form onto that. Now there's the wing of the nose, and you can oil paint right over the pencil, no problem. Just don't get too attached to your lines. You can do something like a transfer drawing, which I've done many times in the past. You may have seen in those videos. The goal here is we're going to get more like an old master. An old master is going to focus more with things like light and shadow, not so much about a bunch of color right away, but an old master is going to focus on light and shadow. These are things that I've learned from studying the images from the old masters. Now, nose down to mouth. If your tendency is similar to my tendency, in which this is usually too low, this is going to sound a little weird, but I'm going to just move it. Not because I see it, but just because I always screw it up. It's something that I know. Just like that eye, I'm projecting it up a little bit, just to about there. And that's going to create a perspective line instead of here. It's going to move it up there. This is my tendency. I always make that too low. So I raise it just a little bit. And now we're in a good place to start to add the paint on here. But spend as much time as you can with this type of geometric drawing. Get it down. You'll never regret spending a little bit more time with your drawing. But if you do have a pencil extender like this, I would suggest, if you're done with it, take it off, because I've broken a couple tips off of other pencils by accidentally dropping it, because this kind of tends to roll, but I know you don't care about that. Alright, so starting off with the landmarks of the face. Hey Grace, glad to see you too. Start off with the landmarks of the face. Tear duct. Right here. The other tear duct is hidden, but we know it's somewhere down there. Eyebrow. This gives us proportion. Hairline, like we said, is somewhere over there. Nose, the corner of the nose we know is going to land somewhere to this direction of the tear duct. So perhaps this may actually move to the left. And this is going to be for the wing of the nose. In perspective, we are looking up. Like I said, working from the old masters, I have learned to look for a little bit more nuance in the drawing. Mouth, like I said, I told you it would have to move up slightly, which it is. Not so bad to move it up to there. The color that I'm drawing with is black and burnt sienna. Okay, so this gives us this corner of the mouth, which I did say was going to nearly match with this, and that works. The edge of the nose lands here, where it's supposed to. Now we're going to draw, we're going to shade in the shadow. We're going to use the tone of the canvas for quite a lot of stuff. There we go with the mouth. Hey, Bernadette, yes, portraits are very difficult. I, for one, I find that I am much more fascinated with portraiture than I am with like other materials, like or other subject matter. However, I enjoy, my favorite thing in the world these days is waking up and getting right to my palette and just getting straight to work. That's like one of my favorite things. I am a full-time painter. Somehow I managed to continue being a full-time painter, but anyway, just kind of the materials handling is something that I enjoy the most. But yes, portraiture is quite a challenge. The chin is actually smaller than what I had before, so the chin, I think, lands somewhere over there. And now this gives us the angle for the jaw, which is quite an acute angle, not obtuse, but acute angle. Okay, so now we can shade in. Oh, cool! You paint every day. As soon as you wake up, go to the canvas. This is oil paint, but you could actually do this with acrylic, because I'm not relying on wet transitions right now. So you could do this with acrylic as well. Eyelash, I'm differentiating the eyelash from the tear duct. And there we go. This gives us the angle of the eye. And now we're locked in place. So that took a while, didn't it? It took, I don't know, however long it took, but it took, like 15 minutes to get these proportions in place. But, an extra 15 minutes spent in the beginning to try to get the drawing, it will probably save you like an hour of trying to fix it with paint. Coming from my own experiences. Now here's the corner of the eyelid. We're using the brush to draw in the dark lights. You can also do this with acrylic, but you gotta be careful because acrylic will start to dry on you. Get as much done in the dark lights as you can with the brush so that when you go in with the skin color, it'll be easier to use the tone of the canvas. And I'm using a method that's known as open grisaille. It's not a full grisaille. And this takes some paint handling to do. So you have to have kind of a soft touch, but you can develop a soft touch really easily. So one of the things that makes oil paint a little bit easier if you're transitioning from something like acrylic is to practice with charcoal. So use some soft charcoal, vine charcoal, and it'll make, especially this, what I'm doing here, it's identical. This is almost identical to how a soft charcoal, vine charcoal would work. This is a pretty used up brush. It's a beat up brush. Known as sometimes it's known as a rigging brush or a rigger brush. Not because of its shape, but because of its purpose. This is a brush that I do not clean, and it's more used up. So you can actually see different stages of my brushes. This is a newer one. The one that I was just drawing with is a little bit more beat up, and you see this one is really beat up. And when the brushes get really beat up, don't throw them out. They just change job titles to a rigging brush. So use this rigging brush, and I got this from Sargent. Sargent actually had a technique like this where it was said that Sargent would go in with a rigging brush that's where I got the term rigging brush, to go in with stuff like this. Corner of the cheekbone. I have to pick and choose my battles here. I am not going to have enough time to go in with background and hair and all that stuff right away, just because of the technique that I'm using. So I'm going to have to prioritize some things over others. This is once again what I've learned from working from life. I have been working from life every week with long poses under natural light. You can check out my Instagram and you can see what I've been up to. But I realized that even 4 hours is not enough to go in with how I used to do with my oil painting alla prima tutorials. Go in with the background, go in with all this flashy stuff, color mixtures and stuff like that, and then eventually get to the drawing. I just don't. I don't get to that point because I get too caught up with the way it looks and then having to move things around. And I have learned personally that is not the best way to optimize my time. But the best way to optimize my time is to look for the dark lights. And that's what we're building here, is the dark lights. This is what's going to differentiate a more realistic painting, or say more of a likeness, versus more of an abstract expressionist kind of painting that doesn't quite look all that real, but it's still beautiful in its own right. That's what I was doing. At least that's what I was trying to do in the past. I would do a painting in 4 hours with the hands, maybe painting a horse in the background or something like that, and it just doesn't have the realism, but it's a different exercise. It's not that it's any lesser, it's that it's just a different exercise. Okay, so now drawing wise, I think I'm good, right? I'm okay. Could this mouth be too low? Probably. I'm going to assume it is because I always mess that up. So I'm going to move it up again, just a little bit. And just a fraction of an inch. Fraction of an inch. I'm going to move that just a little bit so that this distance is a little bit closer. And I can use the rigging brush to move this up ever so slightly. And it did seem like the chin was probably a little bit too compressed there. Or I don't know. I may just move the chin up as well, just to be a little bit more cautious. Hey, William. All right, goal here, everybody. Goal is to create a more realistic painting. And how to define that is a little different than what I was showing you before. Okay, there's that position for the mouth. Again, make sure that your original estimations are still in play, which they are. And now we can start to go in with color. And I would prefer to have a brush for the light and a brush for the shadow. So I'm going to use this as my brush for the light. On your palette, have an area where you mix your drawing color, and then have another area right here and mix a big puddle of a neutral skin tone, and we're going to use that to cover all of the light, but we're going to leave the dark lights to be the tone of the canvas. I have 3 different white paints. I have titanium white, I have alkyd titanium white, and I have lead white. Don't concern yourself with having to use all these different materials. Titanium white will suffice for most purposes. However, I am using lead white with burnt sienna, quite a generous amount of lead white burnt sienna, and I'm going to use a little bit of sap green or terre verte. Terre verte, they're pretty darn similar. So I'm gonna get kind of a neutral brownish that can have some green undertones. So I'm gonna test out a corner. Now, working from life, this is an excellent stopping point for the first 20-minute session or the first 30-minute session. This is a great stopping point. So this is a good place. You can even leave it like this and spend the entire session just trying to figure this stuff out. And you really won't regret it. All right, so let's test out a spot. That is too bright, so I'm going to use more terre verte. Again, see how large of an area this is. So I'm using more terre verte and burnt sienna. Again, terre verte and sap green, I'm just kind of using them interchangeably. They're kind of the same thing. Please do not use a palette that's right next to this. You're going to hurt your arm. It hurt my arm. It really does hurt my arm to do this back and forth-ish. And I just love my palette. I'm going to show you exactly how much I love this palette. Make sure that you have a palette and you stick with it. I will be selling merchandise in the future, and I have a hat with my palette on it. Yes, I do love this palette that much that we've got merchandise on it. But anyway, let's try it again. Okay, good. That's what I want. Something like that will work just fine. And you can use your rigging brush as kind of an eraser, like that. Hey, need a pale yellow. Let's go back to my colors. This pretty much has all the different type of colors that you can imagine. I've got a lead tin yellow, Indian yellow, raw sienna. You're probably talking about the raw sienna. If we're talking about like a palish yellow or a lead tin yellow, which those are kind of difficult colors to get, but I have raw sienna, which kind of looks just like yellow ochre. It's right here. So again, this is where I'm going to tell you, please do not focus on how to mix a color, but rather focus on your form. Form is more important than how to mix a color. But I'll always answer any color question. Please always feel free to ask me any questions. I just want to give you the best experience. Okay, now that we have the color, this is again something that I have developed from working from life. I'm going back to my accents. This is the tear duct. Now, if you've ever done a barg drawing, then you'll know that this little position point here is kind of a big deal. You've got verticals, you got horizontals, and you can tell all the different angles from this. So going from this part, this bony landmark, to right here, I can see that the nose needed to move a little bit more to the left. So I'm going to use this to move it to the left. Now you may ask, why am I using lead white and there's so much of it? There's so much lead white here. And it's because of the level of finish that I'm going to attempt to achieve with just this. Just this. We probably won't even get here. We're going to stick right here. Yeah, you can begin with a million colors. I'm one of them. I'm one of them. I have done it. I've shown that on YouTube. But here, I'll make it so easy for you. The beginning was just pencil, so no color mixing there. Black and burnt sienna for here. This, I promise you, is you can get this with burnt sienna, white, ultramarine blue. You can get this exact color, burnt sienna, white, ultramarine blue. I used terra vert, burnt sienna, and white. I did not use ultramarine blue because my ultramarine blue, which is all the way to the left, is a fast dryer. I don't want to use a fast dryer right now. I'm using it on a different painting. So I used the terra vert. But burnt sienna, white, ultramarine blue will get you that. Alright, so next landmark is going to be the corner of the mouth. And this nearly matches the tear duct, but it's to the right. And you see it, I almost made the mouth too big. So it moves a little bit out this way. Something about like right there. Okay, that's pretty close. Now I can see clearly that I almost made that nose too pointy. It needs to be round. So now we can do these corrections with color. Create this round, and this is why I said use a middle value, because we're gonna cover the entire face with this. Alright, so this is where it rounds, and then it gets a little bit more flat over here. Now here's where we're going to use the tone of the canvas, and be careful if it's getting too yellow or too green. Be a little cautious. So I will throw a tad bit of ultramarine blue into that mixture. Again, burnt sienna, white, ultramarine blue, it'll get you there. It's not the story of how the color created the form, but rather it's about how the shapes created the form. Okay, so the edge of the eye is right here. Now, the bulb of the nose is not supposed to match with the corner of the face. So this line is too far to the left. Too far to the left. Now, don't worry, Bernadette, about having it look like someone. Likeness is more about little things like this. See how I moved it? Look how small that is. I moved it a slight amount to the right. But likeness is about those little changes. And something I used to say back in the day, drawing is the root of all good and evil in painting. And this might still be too yellow. I think it's still too yellow. So I'm going to go with a little bit more of the blue, but it's okay. We're going to paint form into that. You'll see what the purpose is. Hey, Tour, thank you. Thank you for that comment. Alright, so disregard, please, the fact that this is too yellow, but again, you don't need to worry too much about the color. Okay, so now that we've got our landmarks down, and don't forget the chin, the distance that the mouth makes down here relative to the chin. It's a petite chin, it's a really small chin. There's some angularity here, so light and shadow. And the chin looks extra small because the hand is resting right on top of it. So we're gonna just have to ignore the hand. Okay, so now we have the shape for the chin right there. Now we can go and fill in the light on the mouth, and I can use a little bit more white now. Lead white has this property of which you can use more of it without raising the value too much, which makes it a little bit easier to work this way. Okay, so now we have that, and you see that this now emulates somewhat the reference a little bit. So we're getting there, a little bit closer now. Okay, so now we're going to add light on the cheekbone, and we're going to use the tone of the canvas. This is a linen panel. It's a paint. You can see a face under it. I painted over an old painting. I used a lead white primer, Michael Harding lead white primer with Alkyd black oil paint. Now you see a little bit less pressure makes this less bright, especially with the lead white. Once again, this is an excellent stopping stage for if you are working from life and you have a 20-minute or a 30-minute session at a time between model breaks. This is an excellent time to take a break. Take a model break. Again, using the tonality of the canvas, you see here the property of lead white. See, it's how it's creating this soft gradation. You can do this with titanium, just use less of it, and it'll be just fine. And the forehead is actually way, way off. See, the forehead was my biggest mistake in the original drawing. The forehead was the biggest mistake. Hey, Angela and Jonas, welcome, welcome. And because the forehead was the biggest mistake there, I'm going to go in with this line and solidify it right now. Be aware of your tendencies, because you'll find that they repeat themselves. The nose is right there. That's pretty much dead on where it's supposed to be. This is now to the right. Be aware of the mistakes that you make because they will repeat. And if you can catch them, then that's where you improve. There's the bulb of the nose. She has a pretty rounded nose, which I like because I have a round nose and I kind of know how to paint round noses. Yeah, when I do self-portraits, I typically take a break like every 15 minutes. But that's just because that's me. I get distracted a lot. I play Toby on the Roku. I was working this morning and watching the Tupac documentary. Alright. Now we're going to transition into a different gear. Now that we've covered, albeit it's quite yellow, but more realistic. I think this is more realistic than what you've seen me do before, even at this point in time. I could leave it and it might do somewhat okay on something like Instagram. So now, remember I said on the palette, you have a big section of this skin tone, and you have a big section of the dark. Now you have all the room to go light to the right and darker in the middle. So this is excellent because the purpose is now going to be values. We left the tone of the canvas for the most important dark lights. So we are going to take this to a very realistic level. At least I'm going to try. Let's do like Yoda. There is only do, there is no try. Look for your highlights first. Now some of my teachers have told me the reverse. But I am going to treat this like a pencil drawing. And if I'm doing a pencil drawing on a tone, I am going to go for the light first. Put my foot down. This is nearly straight lead white. But not. Now this is the brightest this is going to get. It's not going to get any brighter than that. Oh, thanks, Bernadette. These are very simple colors. I hope that it helps. Okay, so when it comes to form, here's where it's going to get a little technical. But this repeats itself on pretty much almost all faces with light above. Okay, so the tear duct, these planes are pretty close. If you're working from life, walk around, stand up, and walk around, and you'll see that this is one chop basically from one side to the other. Now we're going to go to the corner of the nose, and here's where I can change the color if I want to. There's the bridge of the nose. Okay, so if you want to get more realistic, you have to differentiate between anatomical landmarks and their planes. So this is the bridge of the nose right here. This is the plane break, the physical beginning of the nose. So this has to be exact. And I have it wrong. This is too high. It should be nearly right on the nose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the light that I need to have on the nose. And because I'm using lead white, I can do this because it doesn't add too much right away. And I'm going to go in with a small brush. I'm going to go back to the drawing color. And I'm going to make that correction now, right away. So this is a little bit more straight. I'm looking for the plane break between the root of the nose and the glabella. Again, this is the glabella, so tear duct right there. Okay, so now they should be nearly matching. This is a little bit more straight. So the difference there. So the difference is just a fraction of an angle. And the plane break starts here, right here. This is where the plane break begins. And now we can go in with a different brush. And now I'm switching to these little yellow ones. I'm going to add some red into my middle tonality mixtures. I'm using cadmium red, and I'm using an alkyd red because I'm doing a different painting at the moment right across from me that requires the alkyds, but you can use just cadmium red or burnt sienna. There's that plane break right there. I need that to be as specific as it can be. Jonas, who wrote, is it common for an artist in some cases to spend 1 hour on an area of a portrait like an ear? Oh yeah, whew, you could spend a whole day. As a full-time painter, I can tell you I will spend as much time as it takes, whatever it takes. I will do whatever it takes to get there. And I've learned this from the master studies because there's just so much to see, and it's actually a different type of seeing, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Thanks, Tour. I'm glad you like my portraits and my humor. Oh, and my voice. Thank you. I'm glad you like the portrait with the snake. I need to do another one like that. I should do another one like that. Do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Now, it looks like my internet is kind of cutting off. Sorry about that. So when I make one change, like right here, it's going to impact the surrounding areas. So portraiture is how a bunch of little things, and I used to say this before, it's about how a bunch of little things can affect the result. So I'm seeing only a sliver right there, a sliver of the corner of that eye, and the eyebrow. And this is what I didn't do with my previous paintings. I didn't do this because I just didn't know how to look for them. And now let me tell you something, and I want you to remember this. If you only remember one thing out of what I say, or one little segment of today, I want you to remember, when you're working from life, again, working from reference is good, but just make sure you're working from old masters primarily before doing something like this. But here, let me tell you something. You, the artist, you are A, the model is B, the painting is C. All of us can see from A to B. Artist is A, model is B. All of us can see from A to B. But going from B to C and C back to A is the problem. Something gets lost in translation. Going from B to C to A. Going from C back to A. There's something that's lost in translation. And I can tell you this with utmost confidence because when I was painting from life, just this Saturday, I made a nose too long. And I didn't see it. I couldn't see it. For the life of me, I couldn't see it. And had I measured it like I did here, I would have been okay. But I didn't. And it was only pointed out to me right when I was leaving. Right when I was lifting up my canvas, the model goes and she says, the nose is too long. I'm like, oh, thanks. I mean, I would have liked to have known that before, but it's okay. It's a learning thing. Something gets lost in translation from C to A and from B to C. That's where things are lost in translation. And I wish I could make that more clear, because I know it sounds kind of convoluted. I wish I could make that more clear for you. Okay, so now we made that adjustment. We might as well just take this line, adjust this. Now this is what makes realist portrait painting so different, is that these little things, these little angles, as boring as they are, tell a big story here. And you can't be afraid of them. Yes, this is a very difficult thing to do, but you can't do it with fear. You know, be bold, make a mistake. But don't ask the canvas for permission to paint. There we go, angle of the nose. Okay, so now let's get into some fun modeling stuff, and I'm going to use these smaller brushes to do it. So on the palette, I'm going to, and I've done this before, this isn't new, but it's kind of important to mention again. Have a string, and you can already see it developed by itself, but a string from light on the right to dark on the left, or if you're right-handed, it would be the reverse. If you're right-handed, if you're left-handed, it would be the reverse, but I'm right-handed, so it's kind of easier for me to go from here to here. I don't like mixing across my arm, that's why I have the white on the palette. But enough of the talking. Now let's add some form and color. Now, working from a live model, I have certainly learned to take my time with this stage, with every single stage. I've been taking more time to create a better result, but I'd rather spend more time trying to get the exact shape than I used to. I didn't spend that much time doing that before. So there's a little bit more red here. And now I understand it. I understand why Nelson Shanks and other artists, realist artists, like Nick Alm is another one, if you haven't heard of him. Nick Alm. That will pretty much just create like as perfect as possible of a face with not much of a background. Because this is tough stuff. It's difficult, very difficult. Sometimes when I throw in a lot of colors too early on, yes, it's a lot of fun to do that. But again, something gets lost in the translation. Here's that nose that I told you was going to be a lot of fun to round out. something gets lost in the translation. Hey Angel, Howling Dog Design, welcome. So this is the new me thus far, everybody. This is the stuff that I've been learning on my own. Thankfully, I've been able to paint with people. I've made the trip to Baltimore all the way from Alexandria to paint from life, and it's helped me. Lead white is easier to control, especially in these stages. So if you liked the video, please check out my Instagram. I've been struggling to try to get my Instagram back on track. It's a very challenging platform. That's why I'm sticking with this type of stuff. Rendering out the nose a little bit more. Now the cheekbone, this is a really fun area. Differentiate the plane with color. Working from an old master painting or a live model or a self-portrait, you'll actually see there's a lot more color in this area right here than you see in photographs. Oh, visual IQ, exactly, yeah. There's a lot of things that get lost in translation. It's directly related to visual IQ that I was talking about. Like, some people can just see it. Like, they can work from life, and it just like immediate likeness, no problem. They could do that when they're like 16. It's nothing for them. The rest of us, we really gotta figure it out. And I had a little bit, not a lot, but I had a little bit of ability to see it when I was younger. But I wasn't perfect, and I reached my threshold limit of what I could see from one area to another. And that followed me for years, and it's still following me to this day. And the only way you can overcome difficulties and seeing, like visual IQ, the only way to overcome visual IQ is through technique. Make sure that your technique is repeatable. It can be tested. Basically, it's scientific. Approach it with a scientific mind and a pure heart and a willingness to adapt. And that's how you will overcome any issues with visual acuity. I have a lot of visual acuity issues that I didn't know I had because we don't see them. Remember, I was saying things get lost in translation. And the crazy thing is, you don't see it. And you think that you're doing just fine. And then you take a picture of your painting, or you take a break and you come back and it's like, what? Who worked on my painting? That's what John Ebersberger used to say. He was my first painting teacher. He said when he would take a break and come back, he's like, who worked on my painting? And, I didn't pay enough attention to that. Yeah, oh yeah, Omar 911. You can buy cheap brushes for oil painting instead of expensive ones. Uh, I feel like you read my mind or something, but these these are thrift store brushes. Yes, I'm using thrift store brushes. My wife found them at the thrift store with um, her family or friends. And I think I have like probably 50 or 60 brushes like these. These are from the thrift store. Yes, I've been using thrift store brushes. If I can use them, you can use them. Uh, will you benefit from higher quality brushes? Yeah. I mean, I've been using higher quality brushes for years, but I can't afford them. They're too expensive. And I've been using alkyd paints. With alkyd paints, they dry real fast, and you can ruin a brush real fast. In fact, I have a section on my palette all the way to the right by my solvent cups that I only use for alkyd because it dries right away, and I don't want to ruin my mixing space. Yeah, you can use cheap brushes. Absolutely. Well, the funny thing is, I'm using thrift store brushes, but I'm using Rublev lead white, so direct contrast. You want pretty good paint. Alright, so now I'm rendering all this form, trying to make it look more realistic. Any drawing discrepancy like this still needs to be moved to the right. Will be done, it will be dealt with. Give yourself time to see the mistakes and be easy on yourself. Be nice to yourself. I have not been so nice to myself. I've just been, I don't know, I've been stressing for weeks, I feel like, but now it's okay. I don't know. I feel now that I have more of a system, now that this has become more of a systematic approach, it's okay. I'm not really that worried about it anymore. But always know what your limitations are and surpass them through technique. It just needs to turn and be aware of I see this is a new one that I've been learning and I don't really know how to describe it, but be aware of the generalities that happen when you are conceptualizing form. And see, that's a mouthful. Be aware of the generalities that occur when you are describing form. And the best way to work on them is to work on your drawing in line form. So like I said, definitely check out my Instagram because that's where I'm sharing these things. But generalities in form, like right here. See how this has a chop, like here, here, here. It's not just curve. This has a chop, like here, here, here. Whereas before I probably would have made it to round, like right here, right? This is an example of what not to do. So here, look how generic this curve is. See how generic this curve is? And it's fine, right? This is a different type of approach. But this is what I mean, right? These little angularities. Tour, you mean form? You mean modeling? Is that what we mean with the 3D? You can get better at form by doing cast drawings or still life. That's how you can improve, and that's part of pretty much almost every atelier. It focuses on that kind of thing. And just like in line form, there's a lot of small changes that occur. It's the same thing in values. It's crazy. It's so crazy that the better you get, the more you see these things. And I see it now within all my previous work, especially all my previous YouTube videos. That's like the battle that I'm dealing with right now. It's not so much a battle as it is a fight, but it is something that, I have tendencies and I have limitations and in the short video format, and I'm trying to overcome them by focusing on the most important elements. Like this is more important than what that color was or what her hair looks like. This stuff is more important for a realistic resolve. Notice I didn't even touch the mouth. The mouth is still in grisaille form, but we'll get there, I think. And it's an everyday learning curve. It's an everyday learning curve. You do this exercise, preferably working from an old master, and then you transition into self-portrait life painting. Or you transition into what I'm going to do later today, which is going to be drawing, just pencil. Just like the face that you saw. But this is what I want to do. This is what I want to stick with for now. I feel comfortable enough with this approach that I can bring back my live streams with, of course, a different goal in mind, which is to get better at realism. But I also feel like, now here's the kicker, I also feel like I myself want to improve at seeing these things faster. I don't want to spend too long on these paintings. Maybe 3 hours and I should have a decent face. But the only way to get there is to learn from my mistakes and have a method of painting that allows me to go back and check The mouth is finished. Oh, thanks. I wish, but nah. I mean, we could leave it as it is, but you can't be afraid. You know, there's a lot of fear when we think that something is good the way it is. Well, there's a fear involved in doing something different with it. I know that the mouth is gonna have to have some more form. Can't be afraid of it. But before that, here, this is a different thing here. That this actually cuts in slightly. It's almost like an anime mouth. Where you see the edge of it. And there's an adjustment of the drawing right there. Just like you see the edge of that, you see the edge of that. Before, I may not have looked for that. In fact, I can almost guarantee you I wouldn't have looked for that. And now I can follow up with the bottom of the mouth. But you see, I have, what, like, I don't know, 17 years experience now, or I don't know, close to 20 years experience. And I still went back to the basics to strengthen my work. I still went back to the basics. Never content with good enough. Always seeking a higher level of form. But if you can do it in a line drawing format, these, what did I call them? I don't even remember. Whatever I called it, those little undulations of form. If you can get better at that in a line drawing and do it quickly, like do it in like a day, that's real progress. It's tough to do. It's tough. But I present the results to you. At least I'm trying. This rounding part's a little bit easier. Like, of course, I know that this has to have a slight plane change here. But again, be careful not to overgeneralize. And the mouth still is probably too low. Still too low. Which again is factored into my technique. Because I can use this adjustment to put that right there, that little thing, right? That little thing. It's about moving it just a little bit. Tiny, tiny. Which moves that shape there. moves this, instead of, see where that dot is, it's going to move up a little bit. Just un poquito right there. Remember, I used to say, portraiture is the story of how a bunch of little things can make your day or ruin it. That's what I used to say. But I'm gonna say, portraiture is the story of how little things can make a big difference. And I've known this forever, right? I've known this for years, but see, now that I went back to basics, all of a sudden, things are a little bit better. So the lead white's so easy to move. Now, of course, I'm going to have to change the angle for the lips. This is why it's useful to have a big palette. Well, I have a different space to mix alizarin with white. These are the little thrift store brushes that could. Oh, and what is that going to do? That's going to move the chin. Not to worry. With this technique, I can move the chin. I can make drawing adjustments and work on the form at the same time. Thanks, Christopher. And I think I've explained nearly every step. And that's just because I've been internalizing every step. I mean, every step I've been analyzing it. And that's because I'm trying to overcome let's just face it, it's a talent barrier. I have a certain talent deficiency when it comes to these things, not so much when it comes to color and applying big shapes of colors and working it out that way. I'm fairly decent at that, but with this is a talent deficiency that I've had for years, and I think I had too much pride that I didn't go back to the basics and really spend a lot of time going back and really, studying those basics. But not to discourage anyone. In fact, all I want to do is encourage. Because if I can make progress after so many years, then so can you. This is a message of hope, not one of giving up because things haven't been working. See, this is going to move the chin. This is why this format works, because look, that little adjustment here, little adjustment there, and now you're going to see another one there, just like a drawing. This is why this works. If I had a bunch of colors everywhere, that would be an issue to do these changes. Right there, this one right here. What did I miss? Oh, the visual IQ thing. Yeah, that's how it was worded to me before. Okay, slight bit of light there. Alright, going back to the chin now. This is straighter. Yes, I am looking up. I have to look up because otherwise, as you see here, my hat is going to get in the way. Which, by the way, I will start selling these hats. It's got this thing on it with my palette and the painting from before, but you know, some shameless marketing there. My merch shop will be live in October. Alright, so I moved the chin. Just like a drawing. Straight lines and angles. This angle is right there. But no more than that. I won't do any more than that. This doesn't need it. Now I see that this angle is slightly like that. All these little drawing things. It does make it harder for me. Yeah, especially with when the palette was here, because I'm constantly lowering my arm. That was really uncomfortable. Okay, that angles that way. Cool. All right. Now let's go back to modeling. So I added white there with a little bit of paint. Now I'm kind of pushing it around. This is going to create a little bit more depth. When you're doing a drawing, you're actually filling in the grain of the paper, which is why it's useful to have a smooth paper, like a Bristol paper. Well, I'm actually using art print paper to draw on because funny story. So I bought a big packet of art print paper and I dropped it on the edge. So the edge was bent and I decided I'm going to draw on these. So I've been drawing on art print paper, but it still has the texture of the paper. So you still got to fill in the texture of the paper when you're modeling in a drawing. But you know, it's the same thing in a painting. But did I think of it that way before? No, because I didn't go back to the basics like that before. Now I am. We are always a Padawan to the basics. Always. I'm adding more red now to the edges. This is just straight alizarin. creating that plane change. With the angularity to ensure that it doesn't look too overly generic. I look for these things much more now than I did before. Just like the mouth, I always kind of have to move it up because I know how to look for them. AI faces, no, I hope it's not an AI face. It's kind of hard to tell now which one is AI, which one isn't. It's kind of hard to tell. Nah, I plan on working mostly from old master images, but when I do paint from a picture like this one, I use Unsplash or Pixabay, copyright free. Why, are a lot of people painting AI pictures now? Is that what's going on? Plane break right here between the bulb of the nose and, I guess, the nose. What else do I call it? The top plane of the nose. That's the bulb of the nose. These little plane breaks occur at specific spots. These are very repeatable observations, but it does vary on different models. Oh, and that's so much fun though. Like actually seeing something that you didn't see before, that you learned from life work and old master work, and seeing it in something like a self-portrait. That's a lot of fun to see these things. Perfect faces with the same the same lips. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I'm actually not a fan of now that we're talking about aesthetics, I'm not a fan of exactly what I'm painting. So like the young models in the prime of their lives, things like that. I actually don't prefer it, but I choose subject matter like this because I know that it works a little better on Instagram. Like I said before, I'm kind of struggling with Instagram, so I'm trying to get more, more images on Instagram, like more views or whatever. However, I will contrast that with saying I really love painting people, all people of all different skin complexions, ethnicities, and I love the idea that you can paint all of the people in the world with the same palette. There's no different palette between any different ethnicity or skin color. not to turn this into any kind of political thing, but it is nice that painting itself doesn't differentiate. Like the Zorn palette you can paint anyone with the Zorn palette in natural light. We're keying that light a little bit now. So for example, how about next time I paint someone like this, I'll choose someone that's got more form on their face, let's put it that way. Well, let's just say someone older like me. Someone with more life experience looking. You can see the stress on their face like a Rembrandt. Yeah, sad. There's a certain melancholy that goes in with almost all realist paintings. Yeah, melancholy. You see it in pretty much all the Rembrandts. Reflected light underneath the nose. A little bit of red, orangey under here. Throw some burnt sienna in there. Oh yeah, there's so many interesting faces. I have never seen a single person in my life that I said I'd never want to paint them. I mean, I'd even paint Freddy Krueger if I wouldn't get copyright. I'd paint anyone. We're going in with the reflected light, which accidentally took out the nostril, so I'll add it back. Now here's the part where I feel like I wish I could paint a form a little bit faster than this. And whatever mistakes I have made or am making, I hope to learn from them and do better next time around. But it's not a race against time. Feels like it for me doing this live, but in the grand scheme of things, an hour and a half is nothing for a painting. Nothing at all. But there are certain decisions that I could make in the painting right now for this section which is the only section that we're going to paint, there are certain things I can do here that will make it better. I just need to figure them out. And some of it comes from, I think, will come from doing more self-portraits, more life painting. But for the time span, I think it's okay. Appreciate all the likes, everybody. Appreciate everyone that's been tuning in. We're gonna punch it again. And this is actually more flat in Bouguereau. I've looked at Bouguereau a lot. He makes this actually really flat, which I tend to avoid, but let's just try it. Harjot, what's going on? Uh-oh. No political stuff here. Uh-oh, yeah. Thanks, Harjot. Yeah, I gotta watch out with the political stuff, because that will not be good. But yeah, I'm finally making the trip back to Baltimore. It is a long way from Alexandria. Yeah, and it's not like we have too many people on here that'll argue anyway, but just in case, you know. Just in case. No, it doesn't look like I'm moving. Looks like we're renewing our lease. So I'm still gonna be in Alexandria. Yep. My car is gonna get a lot of miles commuting to Karen's place on Saturdays, but it must be done. Or else I don't get to work from life for extended periods of time other than self-portraits. These sacrifices must be made. I mean, art is expensive as it is. Tuition for like in Caminati, the school that I went to a long time ago, tuition's like 9,000 a semester now. It's crazy. So yeah, that's probably as much as my car is worth now. Maybe a little bit less. Yeah, no, Karen does. No, she doesn't live with me. She's in Baltimore. She has the studio. It's her studio that I go to paint from life. Oh, yeah, my wife is good. She's doing well. She likes this area. She likes the place. So, you know, you know what they say, happy wife. She's actually the one that's doing these merchandise. She's making these we have like stickers and bookmarks and things like that. So Lucy's the one that's designing them to sell. Nope, no kids here. Just us and our Shiba. Our Shiba Inu. Hugo. Alright, so yeah, Bugaro would make this more flat. So I must, even though I don't really see it that way, Bugaro must have had a reason to do that. Oh yeah, I just did another painting of Hugo yesterday. I've done many paintings of him. Yeah, I want to make some shirts with Hugo on the paintings of him. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, painting your pets is a must. You gotta paint your pets. Yeah, I did a watercolor of him yesterday. And I'm making a sticker. This is Hugo. Well, I guess it's too light, but that's Hugo, and I made a sticker. Oh, right. Bugaro makes these areas very flat. Here, like these side planes. Whereas someone like Nelson actually like puts a lot more emphasis on them. But Bugaro makes them really flat. I've noticed them. Maybe it's just because he's trying to make the faces more idealized. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'm gonna have to ask Karen about it. Karen Warshall, the lady that has a studio in Baltimore. I go paint with her on Saturdays. Which shout out to those of you that I've met over there that watch the videos. I won't mention your names. I don't want to embarrass you or anything, but thanks for watching. Kind of cool to go to a painting session and someone actually knows who you are. That's kind of cool. So shout out to those of you, if in case you were watching. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of things. Like, Bugaro makes noses longer too. And I think it's a stylization thing. But I've kind of adapted that, and I feel like that's why I was making the nose too long with my life painting on Saturday. But he's so good at these quiet forms. Like right now, what I'm trying to do. Trying to do something that he did extremely well. This is why I'm only sticking with just this part of the face. Alright, it's almost that time, everybody. I've done what I could. I feel like my form got a little generic uh, again at the end, which was, I guess, expected. But I'll see whatever I could have done differently. What I could do is make a time lapse of this and somehow figure it out in the time lapse where I could have been a little bit better. Oh yeah, the chops. I hope I didn't leave too many chops on here, but yeah. These are the little things that make such a huge difference. And I just know that nose is too round. I have to fix that now. Yeah, cheaper oil paint will work too. I mean, it's really just the white paint that can cause some issues, like zinc white. that can cause some issues. Titanium is pretty good though. You can stick with titanium and not have too many issues with it. Yeah, a pretty good inexpensive palette would be burnt sienna, white, ultramarine blue. That'll get you some pretty good skin colors without having to pay so much on something like the cadmiums. Yeah, this is too big. Yeah, burnt sienna, white, ultramarine blue. Alizarin crimson's a good color to get too. See why it was important for me to stick with just this little bit of painting. Yeah, burnt sienna, white, ultramarine blue. And then eventually when you can get some more colors, like alizarin crimson is a good one. Black, like ivory black is a good one. Then the cadmiums, of course. Just need some color. What I would always suggest everybody is get a really good wooden palette. Clean it off with linseed oil every night. When you're done, clean it off with linseed, just in the mixing space. Because the palette does go kind of a long way. And you get so used to the palette that you have. Appreciate all the likes, everybody. There we go. Last little angle. Just for the sake of the aesthetic, I'm gonna have to draw the edge of the neck. And something on the top to go along with that. It's just for the aesthetic. We'll call these little Instagram lines. That's what we'll call it. Instagram lines. But not everywhere. Think about it like a drawing. In a drawing, you wouldn't want to put the same weight of a line everywhere. See how in this drawing the lines have different weight, different, I guess, thickness. That might even help sell the darn thing. Just little lines like that. Alrighty, I think that's all we've got for this one. So that's the stuff that I have learned from the Old Master Studies and from Painting from Life. In the future, when I do more streams, more videos, I'm going to paint a little bit more like this, take a little bit more time than I normally would in the past to find things that need to be changed in terms of the drawing. So once again, thank you all so much for watching. As always, I wish you the very best, and I'll see you next time.